Whenever I see a plane flying on sky, I get more confidence in my life. I strongly feel that I can do anything. I am proud to be a human. Sky is beautiful with no limits. Planes are amazing with high sophisticated technologies. Aviation has many true stories. Few stories are interesting, few stories are motivational, few stories are terrifying. My name is Satish. I am here to tell you aviation true stories. Come on, let's take off. Pakistan International Airlines flight number 8303 was a scheduled domestic flight between Lahore to Karachi. The plane crashed just before the runway in an area called as Model Colony, highly populated area in Karachi city. Just a few minutes before the crash, pilot said Mayday, 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 and less than 2 minutes the plane crashed. Before that distress call was made by the pilot to ATC, there was no reported problem in the flight and there was no emergency that was declared by the pilot. But why this plane crashed? Before we get into the details, I'll tell you one thing, that this video is just based on initial investigation carried out by Civil Aviation Authority of Pakistan and also based on news reports. This is not the final documentation. The official final documentation would be released by Pakistan's Civil Aviation Authority approximately after 6 months. Let's get into the details. The impact of crash. There were totally 99 on board. Out of 99, 91 were the passengers, 8 were the crew members. Impact of the crash. Fatalities 97, survivors miraculously 2. About the operator, Pakistan International Airlines was the oldest and famous in the world. It operates both domestic as well as international flights and also provides the cargo services. It owned both Boeing type as well as Airbus type aircrafts. On the day of crash, the aircraft that was used is Airbus 320. Airbus is one of the biggest aircraft manufacturing company, very well known to every passenger. A320, the series A320 is the most famous series in Airbus of all series when it was compared to. The autopilot program that was introduced in A320 series has really created a big revolution in aviation history. Before the crash, there was no problem that was reported with the aircraft that was used. The aircraft was 16 years old and technologically upgraded. Airbus 320 has sophisticated electronics. There was no maintenance problem or service problem reported with the aircraft that was used on the day of crash. 22nd May 2020, afternoon 12 p.m. Lahore's International Airport. Passengers started boarding. Pilot as well as co-pilot completed all checks outside the plane, checking the landing gear, tires, and they completed pre-checks inside the plane, checking the fuel content and all technical things that are related to the components of the aircraft A320. As per protocol, they completed all the pre-checks. ATC cleared flight 8303 for takeoff. 1 p.m. in the afternoon, sharply, PIA took off from Lahore. It was around 1.5 hour journey to reach Karachi. It means that by 2:30 p.m. they should be at Karachi. but the passengers inside PIA were not aware that they are going to die approximately after 1.5 hours. Passengers were settling, drink services as well as food services were completed. They got on an announcement from pilot. Pilot said that they are going to reach Karachi within next 20 minutes. But unfortunately, the plane crashed at 2:45 p.m. very near location called as Model Colony, just before the runway, approximately 2 kilometers, less than 2 kilometers away from the runway. The plane crashed. This is the data that is collected from the radar. Using this data, we'll be knowing how the plane has crashed. The best part that I'm going to do in this video is that I'll tell you how plane crashed, and also I'll tell you two assumptions made by me based on the initial investigation reports as well as the news reports. I'll try my level best to tell why this crash has happened, what could have led this crash happen. And also we'll see the questions made by the experts. You could see two paths, the blue color path as well as green color path. Blue color path is a path that was maintained by the flight 8303. Green color path is the actual path that they have to maintain for safe landing. Alright. 2:25 p.m. the flight 8303 was at 20,000 feet. They need to reach the runway. Here is the runway. The runway is located here. At 2:25 p.m. they started descending. The announcements were made and all post checks were done, and they are starting to descend. The moment they have reached 10,000 feet, they got very first call from ATC. ATC has intimated that their flight was at 10,000 feet, but instead the flight should be at 7,000 feet. That was the intimation that was given by the ATC, for which pilot said, I am comfortable with this altitude. Pilot continued to descend, and the moment the flight reached 7,000 feet, again they got another call from ATC saying that their flight was at 7,000 feet instead of at 4,000 feet. Again the pilot replied, I am comfortable with this altitude. I can handle the situation. 3,000 feet difference is a problem before the landing. Unless the pilot was so expertise, it's not that easy to land this kind of aircraft, because the moment it is just 20 nautical miles away from the runway, they need to very fastly drop down to reach this runway. But in case if they have followed the actual path, suggested path, then the landing could be very easy, because they are almost near to the ground, and with a normal speed they could land the plane very easily. But instead of at 7,000 feet, they were at 4,000 feet, they were at 7,000 feet. Now the pilot has to increase the speed in the engine than the normally what exactly it has to be. Pilot could have increased the speed, given more power to the engine in order to fall more fastly. Otherwise they can't reach the runway. Could have done that one. So they fastly came. The speed could have been around 200 miles per hour, which is not a suggestible speed during landing, and they tried to land. We don't know what happened inside the cockpit. So before landing, that was not known. After the landing, after the impact, I'll tell you what happened. The flights, both the engines, left engine and right engine, touched the ground. It's not the landing gear that touched the ground. Since the flight, left engine and right engine touched the ground, the plane, including the whole body, glided on the runway for about 30 seconds. That was an abnormal landing. As soon as this point was recognized by the pilot, with no time, pilot decided to take off. and have given more power to the engines and took off the plane into the air like this. Before they reached 2000 feet altitude, pilot made a call to ATC because this information has to be given to ATC. And pilot said like this: there was an issue with the landing gear and I wanted to make a go around. Go around means if normal landing not possible, the pilot decides for a go around. That means they'll take the plane again into the sky. They make a round of airport. They'll follow the correct path again and they'll attempt the safe landing. So this is called as go around. So this is what the pilot wanted to do, but unexpectedly at 2000 feet, both the engines were failed. It's an obvious thing that will happen definitely because the impact, when the aircraft touched the ground, that was not the landing gear. The complete weight of the aircraft was taken by both the engines, left engine as well as right engine. Something very much important that is related to engine could have damaged, and the impact of that damage was showed at 2000 feet. That's why they lost both the engines. There was no power that is coming into the engine and they started descending. At this point, ATC called flight 8303 and told, you were descending instead of ascending. Please maintain 3000 feet for go around. For which the pilot reported a problem saying that we lost both the engines. We could not make 3000 feet. This was the intimation given by the pilot. ATC understood there could be some danger or some emergency that is there in the cockpit, and immediately ATC said, we have both runways open for you. You can land the plane wherever you want and whenever you want. It means that ATC wanted to stop all the ongoing services for the two runways and they wanted to openly available for this flight 8303, understanding themselves that there could be some problem occurred in the flight 8303. Few minutes after that call, pilot called ATC and said 3 times, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. After this distress call made by the pilot, after less than 2 minutes, the plane crashed into an area called as Model Colony. It is a highly populated area in Karachi and very much near to Karachi's international airport. There the plane crashed. The very good thing that happened about this crash was that luckily there were no public. Even though it is highly populated area, there was no public on the place where the plane crashed and no reported deaths on the ground, only injuries. This is what actually happened. What is not aware is that what happened inside cockpit before landing was not why the landing gear was not applied, and if the landing gear was not applied, why the pilots not reported any problem to ATC. There are so many questions and so much investigation has to be carried out at this particular point of time, because this is the point where the flights, both the engines destroyed, and that is the reason why the plane crashed. So investigators has to find out what happened, what led them to land the plane without landing gear. Why did the plane's body touch the first, and why not the landing gear? This kind of information will be knowing accurately only after the final investigation. But as part of this video, I made 2 assumptions. The first assumption, and this could be the maximum possibility, that why this plane could have crashed. Flight was at 20,000 feet. At 225, they started descending to it is on its way to approaching the Karachi's runway. The moment they reached 10,000 feet, they got first call from ATC. They ignored. The moment they got the second call, while they were at 7,000 feet, they ignored the second warning and increased the power in the engines and started descending. Minutes before they touched the ground, now they came for landing. They landed the plane. They thought the landing gear was deployed correctly, but in fact the landing gear was not extended correctly at the point of at this point of the plane when touched the ground. They immediately recognized it was an abnormal landing. It was not the landing gear that took the entire plane's weight, but the whole body as well as left engine and right engine took the weight. Soon after recognizing this point, they immediately thought, with no time, they thought to take off this plane into the air, and they have took off the plane, and thereafterwards, you know what happened. So the probably pilot as well as co-pilot may not aware that outside, that means beneath, landing gear was not correctly deployed. They were not aware of this fact. In case if they were not aware before landing itself, no pilot or co-pilot would try to land that plane without intimating this problem to ATC, because that could be an abnormal landing called as belly landing. If anybody wants to do belly landing, then without reporting that to ATC, nobody could try that. So this problem was not known. Why this problem was not known is a mystery. I mean, this mystery could be chased only after 6 months. This is first assumptions. The first assumption is that landing gear was not deployed, and the pilot and co-pilot were not aware that they thought that landing gear was deployed correctly, and maybe because of some technical reason that they are not aware that the landing gear was not deployed correctly. Since the landing gear support was not there during landing, the plane's left engine and right engine took the entire weight. The plane's left engine and right engine was not designed to take such a whole weight of the body. That's why there could have been damaged. There are so many electronics that travel, so many electrical wires as well as fuel pumps that travel into the engine. Maybe few of them could have damaged because of that great impact of their first approach that made both the left engine and right engine to damage, and that made the plane to crash. Second assumption, the least possibility. What the least possibility that could have led this plane to crash? Now we are going to see. Flight 8303 continued to descend. The moment they reached 10,000 feet, they got the first call, ignored. They got the second call when the plane was at 7,000 feet. Pilot ignored. Pilot increased the speed, and the moment, minutes before they are about to land, they recognized the plane's speed was too heavy. Imagine that landing gear was deployed correctly. There was no issue with landing gear. Imagine that the landing gear was extended correctly at this point. Just very few seconds before the plane is about to touch, that pilot as well as co-pilot thought it's better not to land the plane because the plane speed was too heavy than what actually it has to be. Maybe the decision was taken, but the decision was taken quite lately. They have, whatever the extended landing gear was there, since they have made a decision to take off, immediately they geared up the landing gear. So the landing gear came inside, and they have given full power to the engines, but it takes time to get full power into the engines. Of course, engines require full power during takeoff, but it takes some time. During takeoff, also every passenger can identify that it takes around 20 seconds to 30 seconds in time to take full power to the engines. So this time delay could have led the flight to touch the ground. Okay, already and touch the ground, and plane fortunately glided. It's not bumping kind of thing or crashing kind of thing that happened. Very smoothly, the plane glided on the runway for about 30 seconds. No fire, nothing else. No fire outside the aircraft or inside the aircraft reported. It was quite smooth gliding for about 30 seconds. Since the decision was already made and the full power was given to the engines, immediately plane took off. After 30 seconds, the plane took off into the air, and afterwards, you know what happened. But this could be the least possible cases, because I believe the words of pilot told after the first impact, whenever the first approach to the runway failed, immediately the plane took off, and pilot called ATC and said there was a problem with the landing gear. I am pretty much sure that landing gear could have deployed, but pilot and co-pilot may not aware that the landing gear was not deployed. If that is the case, then that is the problem with that was definitely a technical issue, and there could be some problem with the aircrafts. And I'm also not aware that why the such an sophisticated plane A320 failed to give some alarm sound alert if landing gear was not extended properly. And in case if that alarm was given, whether pilots ignored that alarm, was not aware. So this has to be investigated. But these are the two assumptions that I made. The maximum possibility is that the pilot and co-pilot thought that the landing gear was deployed correctly, but that could not have happened and led to the accident. What could be the impossible cause? I have read some comments made by the user in different websites, and I have seen some videos related to this accident. Few users said that pilots could have forgotten to extend the landing gear. That's why the plane crashed. No pilot can do that. Such an important task, how do we think that pilot or co-pilot forgets? And it's very unlikely that both pilot and co-pilot forget the same thing at the same point of time. Ridiculous. It's not the point. That kind of errors, such kind of silly errors, may not be expected from professionals like pilot or co-pilot. It's not that easy for any person to become pilot. They have to undergo so much education as well as so many tests they have to pass to become a commercial flight pilot. It's not so simple. And let us imagine that pilot and co-pilot forgot. And what A320 is most sophisticated aircraft, and has highly sophisticated high-end technological computer electronics in it. They have to alert. What is the A320 was doing at that time is also a question. So I strongly believe that this could not have happened. This could be an impossible cause for the crash. The impact when the pilot tried to land without landing gear, without improper extended landing gear, it means that when left engine and right engine touch the ground, this was the impact on the runway. You could see these black color lines here while plane glided on the runway, and the rest of the portion was good, and here you could see the great impact. That means that this is the engine that is taking the total weight, and with the support of engine the entire plane glided. So it could have happened both ways. That means both for right engine as well as the left engine. This is another image in close-up. An image is from CCTV footage. Here also you can identify that damaged engines. This image was taken after landing. I mean, when the pilot wants to attempt landing for the second time. So after touching the ground, this was the impact. Captain's final words to ATC. I always respect pilots. I know how hard job it is. It is too complex and high responsible job. Pilot was very cool till his last minutes, and he could have tried his level best to save the plane. And I have observed this from his voice. His voice, all the words, official footage was already released, and if you want to listen the captain's final words with the final's conversation with ATC, it is available on YouTube. You can watch it, and you will surprised to notice that the captain's voice till last minute was so peaceful, so cool, very confident. It means that the captain, knowing that he was in danger, that he wants to save the plane, till last minute his voice, there was no tense or some abnormality identified from his voice. Usually saying mayday, 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 a person who knows that they are about to crash the plane. Mayday is something about declaring an emergency. If mayday is said, it means that I'm not aware what is going to happen. The plane may crash at any point of time. This is the meaning. Knowing that this is going to happen, captain said very peacefully mayday, mayday, mayday multiple times with a very normal voice, It means that till last minute he wants to do something to prevent the crash, and he tried his level best. I think he I'll show you. I'll show you a proof that what is the effort that he kept to save the plane. This was an image taken just few seconds before the crash. This is the model colony, and you can see the plane there. Impact of crash, model colony Karachi. One of the engines. Here you can see what kind of attempt the captain made. By the second time he wants to land the plane here. Unfortunately, he lost both the engines, and the moment he lost both the engines, the runway was approximately 5 kilometers away from him. But he was able to manage. He tried his level best without support of both the engines to bring down the plane as closer as possible to the runway. This is the point where the plane crashed. The distance between this point and the starting point of runway is just 1 kilometer. So can you imagine that he tried his level best? And the distance from this point to the airport is just 200 meters away. So he made his 100% to bring down the plane as close as possible to the runway. But there were some questions from the experts that why did the pilot ignore 2 warnings from ATC? When the plane was flying too high, the warnings were given by ATC. So these 2 warnings pilot and co-pilot ignored because they could have planned for a go around at that time itself. Why this problem occurred was unknown. And there was also one more question. In case if there was any problem with the landing gear, why A320 series did not sound alarm, did not give any kind of intimation to pilot or co-pilot? If alarm sound was given or intimation was given, why this problem was not reported to the ATC? These are the questions that made by the experts, and in that way the investigation could have been going on. Voice recorder as well as the flight's data recorder were recovered, and the investigation was carried out by, I don't know whether NTSB is involved in this investigation part or not. Maybe after 6 months the official report will be declared by Civil Aviation Authority of Pakistan. Let's wait and see. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is my first video, and I really love planes, and I wanted to tell you many interesting, amazing and terrifying stories, true stories of aviation. Please support me. Please subscribe so that I can make better videos with a better animation by the next time. Thank you so much being with me. Thank you. Bye bye.